Welcome to our deep dive into the potential economic impact of a Trump presidency.
Okay.
You've given us a really interesting mix of sources,
Yeah.
articles, research papers, and even a CNBC video,
I agree.
all focused on what some folks are calling Trumponomics.
Right.
It's a fascinating
Yeah.
and often debated
Absolutely.
topic.
Yeah.
So let's get right to it.
Okay.
What's interesting about Trump's economic approach?
Well, what's interesting is that it really sort of breaks the mold of traditional policies,
Okay.
which makes it particularly intriguing to analyze.
Yeah.
We're going to unpack some of his most prominent proposals.
Okay.
Cover everything from taxes and tariffs to his views on the Federal Reserve and immigration, and explore how these ideas might play out in practice.
Feels like a plan.
All right.
The CNBC video we have really paints a stark picture of the inflation that's hit American wallets.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking a surge of over 20% since February 2020.
Wow.
And the video even suggests we might need a recession to bring prices back down.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's definitely a concerning situation.
Yeah.
And it raises some important questions about the role of the Federal Reserve, which, as you know, is tasked with managing inflation.
Right.
One key point of debate is how much control a president should have over the Fed. Trump has openly expressed a desire for more influence,
Okay.
even going so far as to suggest his instincts are better than those of Fed officials.
Wow. That's a pretty bold statement.
It is.
The video cautions that politicizing the Fed could backfire
Oh, yeah, for sure.
and lead to even higher inflation,
Yeah.
which would obviously hurt the U.S. economy in the long run.
Exactly. The Fed's independence is there for a reason.
Yeah.
It's designed to safeguard long-term economic stability
Right.
by shielding the Fed from short-term political pressures, which can often lead to poor decisions.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to taxes.
Sure.
Another hot button issue.
Oh, yeah, always.
Trump has proposed some pretty dramatic ideas in this area, like drastically reducing the number of Americans who pay federal income taxes,
Okay.
and even floating the idea of replacing income tax with tariffs.
Right.
What are your thoughts on those proposals?
Well, it's true that some of his initial ideas were quite radical,
Yeah.
but it's important to remember that his approach to taxes has evolved over time.
Okay.
The 2017 tax cuts, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
which are currently set to expire in 2025,
Right.
offer a more practical insight into his tax philosophy.
The video points out that Republicans might push to extend those 2017 tax cuts.
Oh, yeah, very likely.
But, and this is a big but,
Yes.
finding the money to fund them would require making some tough choices,
Yeah,
like eliminating certain tax exemptions or potentially reducing spending on health care.
and that's where the real challenge lies.
Yeah.
Unfunded tax cuts could have a domino effect,
Right.
potentially leading to a significant increase in the national debt.
Oh, right.
Some projections even suggest it could exceed 125% of GDP by 2030.
Wow.
To put that into perspective, a high national debt can limit the government's ability to invest in crucial areas like infrastructure and education.
Okay, so that's taxes and the Fed. Now let's talk about deregulation,
Okay.
something Trump has been a big proponent of.
Right.
He believes that loosening regulations on industries like oil, airlines, and banking can boost economic growth.
Yeah, he's very pro-business.
Is that a sound strategy?
Deregulation can definitely stimulate economic activity in the short term,
Okay.
and some would argue that it frees up businesses to innovate and create jobs.
Mm-hmm.
However, we have to look at the bigger picture.
Okay.
There are potential downsides to consider,
Like what?
such as the environmental impact of reduced regulations on industries like oil and gas,
Yeah.
or the possibility of financial instability if banking regulations are loosened too much. It's about finding the right balance between promoting economic growth and mitigating potential risks.
So it's not a simple win-win situation,
Right.
and we need to be aware of the potential unintended consequences.
Absolutely.
Speaking of trade-offs, let's talk about tariffs.
Okay.
One of the most talked about aspects of Trumponomics.
For sure.
Trump is a big advocate for imposing hefty tariffs on imports, so especially from China,
Yeah.
in an attempt to bring back manufacturing jobs to the U.S.
Right.
But how effective is that strategy likely to be?
Well, while imposing tariffs might incentivize some companies to relocate their manufacturing operations,
Okay.
it's crucial to acknowledge that there's no guarantee of a mass exodus back to the U.S.
Right.
Furthermore, tariffs often result in higher prices for consumers and businesses, potentially hurting certain industries more than they help them.
Okay.
And as the CNBC video points out,
Yeah.
tariffs can be regressive,
What does that mean?
meaning they tend to hit low-income families harder than those with higher incomes.
So if I'm understanding you correctly,
Mm-hmm.
it's not as simple as saying tariffs equal more jobs.
You got it.
The impact seems much more complex
Yeah.
and could actually have negative consequences for many Americans.
It's essential to look beyond the surface and consider all the potential implications of such a policy,
Yeah.
including the possibility of triggering trade wars with other countries.
Oh, wow.
For example, if we impose tariffs on goods from China, they might retaliate with their own tariffs on American products,
Right.
leading to a cycle of economic harm on both sides.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
We've covered a lot of ground already.
we have.
Taxes, the Fed deregulation, and tariffs, all pretty complex topics.
Mm-hmm.
But before we move on, I want to touch on one more aspect of Trumponomics.
Okay,
Immigration.
right.
Trump's stance on undocumented immigration is well known.
Very much so.
And the CNBC video explores the potential economic fallout of mass deportations.
Yeah, it's a big concern.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the research we've reviewed suggests that expelling a large number of undocumented workers could lead to significant labor shortages in certain industries,
Okay.
particularly in agriculture and construction. This could have a ripple effect, potentially driving up the prices of food and housing, impacting everyone, not just undocumented immigrants.
It's striking how interconnected things are in the economy.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not just about numbers on a spreadsheet.
No.
It's about really people's lives and livelihoods.
Yeah.
Immigration policies, tax policies, trade policies,
All connected.
they all impact each other
Yeah.
and ultimately shape the economic landscape for everyone.
You've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Understanding those connections is crucial for making informed decisions about economic policy. And that's what we're trying to do here,
Right.
to give you the tools and insights you need to form your own opinions and make sense of this complex world.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great place to pause for now.
Okay.
We've explored some of the key aspects of Trumponomics,
Mm-hmm.
from taxes and the Fed to deregulation, tariffs, and immigration.
Right.
But we're just getting started.
We are.
Okay, so we're back and ready to continue our deep dive into Trumponomics.
Right.
We've already covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, we have.
But as you pointed out,
Mm-hmm.
there's still so much more to explore.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So where do we go from here?
Well, let's delve into Trump's stance on trade deals,
Okay.
particularly his perspective on multinational agreements like NAFTA.
Okay.
The CNBC video we have highlights his skepticism towards these agreements.
Yeah, the video mentions his belief that agreements like NAFTA have contributed to job losses in the U.S.,
Right.
especially in manufacturing.
Exactly.
It seems he leans towards bilateral trade deals
Yeah,
where he believes the U.S. can wield more leverage.
he does, but here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
The video also presents a counterargument.
Oh, really?
It suggests that pulling out of these multinational agreements could disrupt the intricate web of global supply chains
Wow.
and negatively impact businesses that depend on international trade.
So it's not as simple as just favoring one type of trade deal over
No,
another.
not at all.
There's a potential economic ripple effect to consider.
For sure.
It sounds like a delicate balancing act,
It is.
weighing the potential benefits of protecting American industries against the potential costs of reduced global trade and economic instability.
You've hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
It's a complex equation with no easy answers.
Yeah.
Now, let's shift gears and talk about energy policy.
Okay.
Another area where Trump's approach has been quite distinct.
Right. Trump has been a vocal advocate for increasing domestic energy production,
Yes, very much so.
particularly when it comes to oil and natural gas.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen him roll back environmental regulations
Right.
and push for more drilling on federal land.
He has, and the video highlights how this strategy has, at least in part,
Yeah.
led to greater energy independence for the U.S., which is certainly a significant development.
Yeah.
However, it also raises concerns about the potential environmental impact,
Sure.
particularly as it relates to climate change.
So we're facing another trade-off.
Right.
The potential benefits of energy independence and economic growth versus the potential cost to the environment and public health.
Absolutely.
It seems like finding the sweet spot between these competing interests is a real challenge.
It is a complex equation that will continue to be debated for years to come.
Okay.
But for now, let's move on to another crucial aspect of the economy:
Okay, what's that?
infrastructure.
Infrastructure is something Trump has talked about quite a bit,
He has.
particularly the need to invest in rebuilding America's aging infrastructure. Roads, bridges, airports, the whole nine yards.
Right. All of it.
But it seems like his plans have faced some roadblocks in Congress.
Yes, and that's a key point.
Okay.
While the video highlights the potential economic benefits of infrastructure investments,
Like what?
things like job creation and increased productivity,
Mm-hmm.
it also acknowledges the difficulties of funding such massive projects,
Yeah.
especially given the current political climate.
Infrastructure investment requires a significant amount of upfront capital.
It does.
Finding the resources to make those investments without drastically increasing the deficit is no easy feat.
You're absolutely right. And it requires a long-term vision and commitment from both sides of the aisle.
Right.
A willingness to put aside partisan differences and prioritize the future over short-term political gains.
Exactly. It's an area where bipartisan cooperation could truly yield significant benefits
It could,
for the U.S. economy and for the well-being of all Americans.
for sure.
Now let's turn our attention to a topic that always seems to generate a lot of debate:
Okay, what's that?
healthcare.
Ah, yes, healthcare.
This is an area where Trump has made repeated attempts to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act,
Right.
also known as Obamacare.
Exactly.
However, his efforts have consistently met with strong resistance in Congress.
Yeah, a lot of pushback there.
The CNBC video we're looking at really delves into the complexities of healthcare reform,
It does.
emphasizing the challenges of finding that balance between ensuring access to affordable healthcare for all Americans, while also managing the costs to taxpayers and businesses.
It's a tough one.
It's a highly charged issue
It is.
with far-reaching economic implications.
Absolutely.
Finding a solution that satisfies everyone involved:
Right.
patients, healthcare providers, insurance companies, taxpayers,
All the stakeholders.
is incredibly difficult.
It is definitely seems like a task that will continue to be a major focus of political discourse for years to come.
So before we move on,
Okay.
let's take a step back and consider Trumponomics in a broader global context.
That's a crucial point.
Okay.
Trump's economic policies, and perhaps most notably his trade policies,
Okay.
have had a significant impact on global trade and international relations.
Right.
His America First approach has undeniably led to some friction with key trading partners.
The video really stresses the interconnectedness of the global economy
Yeah, it's all connected.
and highlights the potential risks associated with protectionist policies,
Yeah.
like imposing tariffs. It also acknowledges the complexities of navigating today's rapidly changing global landscape,
Absolutely.
where economic decisions made in one part of the world can have ripple effects across the globe.
You're absolutely right. We live in an increasingly interconnected world,
Yeah.
and it's crucial to recognize that economic policies don't operate in a vacuum.
Right.
What one country does can impact others, and it's important to strive for cooperation and collaboration whenever possible.
And it's a good reminder that economic policy isn't just about abstract numbers and financial models.
No, it's not.
It's about people and their lives.
Precisely, the decisions made by policymakers have very real consequences for individuals, families, and communities.
Yeah.
It's crucial that we approach these decisions with careful consideration and a focus on the well-being of all, not just a select few.
Now, with that in mind,
Okay.
let's shift our focus to another fascinating aspect of Trump's presidency:
All right. What's that?
his approach to foreign policy.
Trump's foreign policy has definitely been characterized by a break from traditional norms
Okay.
and a more assertive projection of American power on the world stage. He's taken a more confrontational stance with adversaries like China and Iran,
Right.
and hasn't been shy about challenging long-standing alliances.
The CNBC video explores the potential implications of this approach,
Yeah.
examining both its effectiveness and its impact on global stability.
It's a big question.
It's a multifaceted issue with a lot of different viewpoints.
Absolutely. Trump supporters argue that his tough stance has restored American credibility and strength on the world stage,
Okay.
while his critics contend that his unpredictable behavior has alienated allies and increased the risk of conflict.
Yeah, I can see both sides.
It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
It's certainly a departure from the foreign policy approaches of previous presidents,
It is.
and it's hard to say what the long-term consequences of Trump's foreign policy will be.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Only time will tell how his actions will shape the global landscape in the years to come.
You're right. It's too early to definitively assess the long-term impacts.
Okay.
However, we can say that Trump's approach has shaken things up and forced a reassessment of America's role in the world.
Okay.
This reassessment will likely continue long after he leaves office,
Yeah.
regardless of who takes the helm next.
Okay, so we've covered quite a bit of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
From the intricacies of Trumponomics
Right.
to the complexities of Trump's foreign policy.
For sure.
Before we move on,
Okay.
I want to pause for a moment and reflect on what we've learned so far.
Okay.
What stands out to you as the most significant takeaway?
What strikes me is the interconnectedness of it all.
Okay.
Whether we're talking about domestic economic policies like taxes and deregulation, or foreign policy decisions involving trade and international relations,
Right.
everything is connected. Actions have ripple effects, and it's crucial to consider the broader implications of those actions.
That's a great point, and it highlights the importance of staying informed and engaged.
Absolutely.
We can't just focus on one issue in isolation.
Nope.
We need to understand the bigger picture and how different policies and events impact each other.
Exactly, and that's what makes this deep dive so valuable.
Right.
It's not just about presenting information,
Yeah.
but about helping you connect the dots and develop a more nuanced understanding of the world around us.
Absolutely, and I think this deep dive has been incredibly insightful so far.
I agree.
But we're not done yet.
Oh, no.
There's still more to explore,
Definitely.
especially when it comes to the social and cultural impacts of a Trump presidency.
That's right. We've focused primarily on economic and foreign policy, but we can't ignore the social and cultural dimensions of his presidency.
Of course not.
Those are arguably just as important and far-reaching in their impact.
So listeners, stay tuned. When we return, we'll be diving into the social and cultural landscape of a Trump presidency
All right.
and exploring the ways in which his policies and rhetoric have shaped American society.
Looking forward to it.
This is where things get really interesting. All right, we're back for the final part of our deep dive into the potential impact of a Trump presidency.
Okay.
We've delved into the economic policies,
Right.
navigated the complex world of foreign policy,
Yeah.
and now, as promised, we're turning our attention to the social and cultural landscape.
This is where we see the ripple effects of those policies and rhetoric really taking shape.
Yeah, for sure.
It's fascinating to observe how a presidency can act as a catalyst,
Okay.
accelerating existing social and cultural trends, and sometimes even sparking new ones.
Absolutely. And I think one of the most prominent areas where we've seen this is in the realm of identity politics and social justice movements.
Oh, definitely.
There's been a surge in activism and awareness around issues of race, gender, sexuality, and inequality.
Yeah, it's been quite a period.
Trump's presidency coincided with and perhaps even fueled a resurgence of these movements.
It definitely played a role.
His rhetoric and policies on these issues often served as a mobilizing force, energizing both his supporters and those who vehemently opposed his views.
It seemed to galvanize people on both sides of the spectrum.
For instance, his travel ban targeting several Muslim-majority countries sparked widespread protests and legal challenges,
Oh, yeah, that was huge.
reigniting the debate about immigration, religious freedom, and national security.
Big issues.
Similarly, his comments about women and his appointment of conservative judges to the Supreme Court energized the #MeToo movement and brought renewed focus to the fight for reproductive rights.
And those are issues that continue to resonate strongly today.
It's as if his presidency created this pressure cooker environment,
Yeah, a real crucible.
intensifying these debates and pushing them to the forefront of our national conversation.
Absolutely. And that intensification has had a significant impact on our cultural landscape,
How though?
influencing everything from the art we create and the entertainment we consume
Right.
to the way we educate our children
Yeah.
and the narratives that dominate our media.
You're right. We've seen a wave of films, TV shows, and books grappling with these very issues.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Reflecting a heightened sense of urgency
Definitely.
and a desire to engage in these complex conversations.
And let's not forget the role of social media.
Oh, of course.
It's been instrumental in amplifying these discussions, connecting activists across the globe, and providing a platform for marginalized voices that might have otherwise gone unheard.
It's been a period of immense social and cultural upheaval,
It has.
and it's hard to overstate the impact that Trump's presidency has had on this process.
Absolutely. Whether you view his influence as positive or negative, there's no denying that his presidency has served as a lightning rod,
Yeah.
attracting both praise and condemnation while fundamentally reshaping the contours of American society.
Okay, so we've talked about these broad social and cultural shifts, but I want to zero in on one particular aspect of Trump's legacy that I think is particularly important.
Okay, what's that?
His relationship with the media.
Ah, yes. That's a crucial point.
Trump's approach to the media has been, to put it mildly unconventional.
So the least.
His relentless attacks on the press, labeling them the enemy of the people,
Right.
and accusing them of spreading fake news, have had a significant impact on public trust in traditional media outlets.
It's definitely eroded trust in those institutions.
The CNBC video we've been referencing throughout this deep dive explores how this erosion of trust has contributed to the rise of alternative sources of information, many of which have a clear partisan agenda.
Right, and that's a problem.
It's created this fragmented media landscape where people increasingly gravitate towards news that confirms their existing biases.
Yeah, we're all retreating into our echo chambers.
And that has profound implications for our ability to engage in reasoned debate
It does.
and to find common ground on critical issues.
Absolutely.
When we're all trapped in our own echo chambers, constantly bombarded with information that reinforces our existing beliefs.
Yeah.
It becomes incredibly difficult to understand and empathize with those who hold different views.
It's a real challenge, and it's fueling polarization.
It's a worrying trend that many believe poses a real threat to the foundations of a healthy democracy.
I agree.
A well-informed citizenry is essential for a functioning democracy.
Absolutely.
When we lose faith in the institutions that are supposed to provide us with accurate and unbiased information, it creates fertile ground for misinformation and division.
It's a dangerous path.
You've painted a sobering picture, but shifting gears a bit, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on Trump's appeal to his base of supporters.
Okay.
A group often described as white working-class voters who feel left behind by globalization and economic change.
It's a complex phenomenon.
It is.
But the CNBC video offers some valuable insights.
Okay.
It explores the economic anxieties and cultural resentments that have fueled this support, as well as the demographic shifts that have led some white Americans to feel like they're losing their place in society.
It's important to acknowledge that there are deep-seated anxieties and frustrations driving this support.
There are.
Dismissing Trump's supporters as simply racist or ignorant is not only inaccurate,
Right.
but also counterproductive.
Exactly.
We need to understand the root causes of their anger and frustration if we want to have any hope of bridging the divides in our society.
I completely agree. It requires empathy and a willingness to listen even to those with whom we disagree.
Yeah.
Only through genuine dialogue and understanding can we begin to mend the fractured relationships that have polarized our nation.
That's such a critical point.
Yeah.
It's easy to retreat into our respective corners
It is.
and demonize those who hold different views.
Yeah.
But that only perpetuates the cycle of division and distrust.
Right.
We have to find a way to talk to each other, to listen to each other, and to understand each other if we want to move forward as a nation.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And I think that's a powerful message to leave our listeners with. We've explored a lot of complex issues in this deep dive,
We have.
from the economic implications of Trumponomics to his impact on social and cultural trends,
Right.
and his unique approach to foreign policy.
It's been a whirlwind.
We've examined his relationship with the media,
Yes.
delved into the motivations of his supporters,
We have.
and grappled with the broader question of how his presidency has shaped and continues to shape American society.
It's been a fascinating journey, and I hope our listeners have found it insightful and thought-provoking.
Me too.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground, and as always, we encourage you to continue exploring these issues,
Yeah, keep learning.
to seek out diverse perspectives,
Absolutely.
and to engage in thoughtful discussions with those around you.
That's what it's all about.
The journey of understanding is never truly finished.
It's an ongoing process.
There's always more to learn, more to question, and more to discover.
So keep digging, keep questioning, and keep the conversation going.
That's what makes a deep dive truly worthwhile.
Thank you for joining us on this exploration.
Yes, thank you for listening.
We'll see you on the next deep dive.